All right, folks, welcome to NewsOne Now, broadcasting from Houston, Texas. Net neutrality has been a huge issue over the past several years. The Obama administration, their Federal Communications Commission, they made it clear they wanted an open internet. Now, President Donald Trump plans to reverse that, even pushing the issue to Congress. So what's going on in the civil rights community where civil rights groups like the NAACP, National Urban League, they have a different position from colorofchange.org. Well, a letter was signed by the various civil rights groups when it came to the issue of net neutrality. Folks, let's pull that up. I want to show you that, folks, that letter that details exactly what's going on. Now, net neutrality is the principle that the internet should be transparent and that its users have full equal access to its services, applications, and the content. Well, this letter here, okay, was signed by the various groups by MMTC. And this is what they said: we support a permanent statutory solution that enshrines the basic open internet principles into law. A statute locking in net neutrality would protect net neutrality no matter how the political winds blow. A statutory approach also avoids the jurisdictional and classification problems that plague the last FCC. Now, this whole idea of classification has been one of the issues. The telecom giants like At&T, Verizon, and Comcast oppose the move, arguing it stifles innovation and industry growth. Critics say that the civil rights groups like the NAACP, the National Urban League, and major Hispanic and Asian American organizations are siding with those companies. So, joining us right now is Rashad Robinson, Executive Director of colorofchange.org. Now, Rashad, first of all, for our audience, let me be clear. We invited the NAACP. They declined to come on. We invited the National Urban League. They declined to come on. We also invited MMTC to come on as well, and they also declined to come on. And so Rashad, you're a civil rights organization. You're on the opposite side of these civil rights organizations. And again, what's going on here in terms of critics saying it appears as if those civil rights groups are, in essence, supporting the rollback of net neutrality despite that letter? What's going on here?
So there's a lot of jargon in their letter, but essentially what they're doing is they are supporting Donald Trump's position on the internet and basically rolling back the principle that allows for all information to travel at the same speed. So when you and I show up to the internet and we try to find information on a particular subject, we can actually find it and not be sort of directed depending on what a corporation wants. Verizon actually went into the courts back in 2010 and said that they should be able to treat the internet like they are editors of a newspaper, deciding what's on the front and what's on the back. And we understand what that means for black communities, what we understand in the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina and the aftermath of Ferguson, whose stories end up on the front and the back. And so it's particularly disappointing that these civil rights groups would take checks for $100,000 or $200,000 and essentially advocate for what is basically giving us the check-cashing version of the internet. And at the end of the day, for everyday people who are paying attention, this is what you have to understand. The NAACP and the Urban League released a letter standing with Donald Trump over President Obama, Maxine Waters, and John Lewis. That's essentially what they've done. And they've put a lot of jargon in, hoping that we won't understand. They've taken the language from Comcast and Verizon. And what Comcast and Verizon have also argued is that if they can somehow make more money when they've actually had record profits over the last several years, if they can somehow make more money, they will move internet and broadband into communities of color. That's essentially arguing for trickle-down economics. We have civil rights groups saying that if we just give these corporations more money, they will turn around and be benevolent and treat our communities better. That's not advocacy. That's not civil rights. That's not the history of civil rights in this country. And so we need the tools more than ever in the era of fake news, in the era where so few black people, so few women own media outlets, to be able to tell our stories, to be able to reach the public. And in this era,
now, Rashad,
Yeah, keep going.
Now, the letter was put out by the Multicultural Media, Telecom, and Internet Council. Now, the Intercept.com, an investigative news website, they reported on this initially. They said that Comcast has given the NAACP and other recipients $1.8 billion to various community groups. The National Urban League received $1.2 million from Verizon in 2014. That was a point that you made there as well. And again, we reached out to MMTC, reached to the NAACP and the National Urban League, invited everybody on. They all declined to actually come on the show to discuss this. And we discussed this before as well. And so what I'm trying to understand is the previous FCC, again, said they were backing net neutrality. When we had this debate before, it got very hot because there was, I think we had you on and Kim Keenan on when she was with the NAACP. And so there was some disagreement there as well. And so this sounds like, according to this letter, according to the Intercept, they want Congress to decide this, but it's now a Republican-controlled Congress.
Yes.
And look, they made it clear that they are not going to side with you and other advocates when it comes to net neutrality.
Yeah, and essentially, we could have lost net neutrality given the political wins without the civil rights groups going and collecting a big check from telecom companies and giving cover to AT&T and Comcast. We could have lost this and still made it clear that these telecom communities have come to our communities by day asking for our money and our support, and by night trying to take away our political voice without the civil rights groups standing up for it.
So Rashad. Yeah. So Rashad, for the person sitting at home, what does this really mean to them? Does it really have an impact? Because when they hear net neutrality, the person at home is like, okay, how does this really impact my life?
So how this will affect people on a day-to-day basis? Let's say that I want to find out information on Roland Martin, on the Roland Martin Show, and I go in to my web browser. If I have AT&T, they may actually send me to a site like Roland Martin. Or they may send me to Fox News, who has a problem with your last segment, but not actually directly. They may say that if I want to get to Roland Martin, I have to pay extra money into another package. So basically what net neutrality does is it makes the internet like a public utility. It's no longer a luxury. We need the internet to get jobs. We need the internet to find news.
So just like phone servers, just like electricity, as a public utility.
And public utility. Instead of like cable, where right now if you want certain channels, you have to buy into certain packages. If you live in certain cities, you can have brownouts on certain channels when people are fighting over contracts. Yes. And for poor folks, right, particularly who don't have always access. And Kim Keenan also did something also problematic, and I've challenged all these folks to actually debate me on this.
About 20 seconds, go ahead.
She praised Donald Trump's FCC chairman, who in his first act rolled back internet service for poor kids in inner cities.
Got it.
She praised him. These folks are using the legacy of civil rights, taking big checks, and putting us all in danger when we need to be doing all we can to stand together, resist, and oppose.
All right, Rashad, we surely appreciate it. Thanks for having me. You know, we'll reach out again to the civil rights groups. We want them to come on the show because we want to discuss this. This is very hotly debated in social media and by various different civil rights groups. So we want that discussion on this show of all the players. And so we'll extend an invitation again to the NAACP, the National Urban League, and MMTC as well.
Kickstart your day at 7 and get the news you need from the perspective you want. NewsOne Now with Roland Martin. Every weekday morning at 7 on TV1.